Hey, everybody, it's Dan Mori with the National Independent Staffing Association. And I just wanted to take this slot in Staffing Monthly November to give you just my thoughts and insights about the recent National Independent Staffing Association Leadership Conference that we hosted in Orlando last month. And I really want to I took a lot of notes. We had some amazing speakers. If you were, one of the people in the room, I'm sure you got immense value out of it. I heard tremendous feedback. And if you weren't one of the people in the room, if you couldn't make it, I certainly would encourage you to sign up for the next one. We've got some conferences coming up. We have the Staffing Sales Summit, which is a first of its kind sales training only conference coming up in Orlando in February, actually February 20th to the 22nd, where we have some of the industry's best trainers, coaches, consultants coming to Orlando to teach the most effective modern day staffing sales strategies, the tactics, techniques, and actually share some of the resources that are helping salespeople be more successful today in such a different, challenging sales climate. So we also have our spring conference coming up here. We're targeting to be in Nashville in April, but more information will be on the website here shortly. But outside of that, I want to talk about my takeaways, putting my staffing owner hat on and sitting in the room and listening to the speakers that we had, which the lineup, obviously I was there. I presented information about how do you actually build a sales plan, which I'll talk about that in a little bit. But we also had Tom Erb, who is obviously one of the most sought after speakers in the industry. And he actually came in and shared about how to be a better recruiter. How do you actually put together a recruitment plan that's going to engage more people? I'm going to talk about some of my insights there. We actually heard from David Cerns, who is the co-CEO of Haley Marketing, one of the industry's best marketing minds that we have. And he actually talked to us about how do we market to candidates and clients, like how are we actually doing client side and candidate side marketing so we can actually drive more candidates, which really played in well with what Tom Erb was talking about. And then he also talked about the marketing piece of how do you actually market to your clients to get more awareness. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. And then we had Tony Van Dinther, who is a former Sandler sales trainer. He was actually the one that was an early mentor to me in my early staffing days and kind of taught me really about sales process. And he shared some stuff that I found that was absolutely fascinating that can certainly help you out. So, but really the biggest takeaway, and there's kind of three things that really stuck with me. And one of them is maybe sort of a mindset or a behavior for the organization. The next one is actually a tactic, and the other one is a tool or a resource. And I just want to share these with you. As first and foremost, as far as like the mindset or organizational behavior, this one came out of David Cerns' presentation, which we're actually going to be getting uploaded, the slide deck uploaded into the NISA digital library. But Tom Erb definitely hit on this as well. And it's planning ahead. And I know that it sounds so simple and it's like, yeah, we know what that means, but it just hit a little bit differently when Tom and David were talking about this in Orlando, right? So in Orlando, the big one when David approached this is he was like, what are your goals? What are your goals as the owner or the leader of the organization? And what are the organizational goals? What does the organization have to do to achieve your goals? And the way that he phrased it is he's like, what are we solving for, right? If you in your life want to achieve something great, you want to buy a bigger house, move to a better school district, buy a nicer car, take an amazing vacation, whatever it is that you want, like a personal goal for you that your business is going to provide for, that's what you're solving for, right? And he encouraged us. He's like, you should just look at like, what is it that the business needs to provide for you as the owner and the leader? And then actually, I love this concept, and we're actually implementing this now in my own staffing company, is what do your leaders need to get out of the company? What are their professional goals or personal goals that can be solved for by the success of the company? And then how do you actually create that into a plan that you go forward in solving for through the company's success, right? So they actually host an annual meeting where they basically get all their leaders together and they say, hey, what are your goals? What are you trying to achieve? And they hear the things like, I want a nicer house. I want to move. I want to upgrade my car. I've got to pay for my kids' college tuition, whatever it might be, all these things, right? And generally speaking, most of them come back to one of two components: money or time, right? They want money to do something like buy a new house or pay for their kids' tuition, or they want time to, maybe work on a house, complete a project, do volunteer work, take a vacation. It generally comes back to money or time. And then he encourages, like, look out a year, 3 years, 5 years. He's like, maybe even 10 years if you want to go that far, and figure out, what does the business need to do and be in order to provide the money and time that the leaders of the organization needs. And I thought it was fascinating, because it really creates that alignment. Because at the end of the day, that's why we do what we do. I mean, yes, it's meaningful. We do meaningful work, and we place people in roles, and that's really, really powerful stuff, and it's fulfilling. But at the end of the day, we work to live. We work for what the work will provide for us, so we can actually go have our individual lives. And the approach of actually aligning the personal goals and desires of you, the owner, leader, or of your leadership team, to what the company does, I think makes it even more meaningful, and it actually gives you focus. So everybody is moving in the same direction to achieve the same organizational goals, but everybody's motivated by their own personal preferences. And I think that's the most powerful kind of alignment. So I really appreciated David Stearns doing that. The practical approach, he actually had a workbook. It's going to be in the slides. We're going to modify some of the physical, tangible handbooks that he gave out and put it into a slide worksheet form that'll be accessible in the digital library here. But just really practically, if you can conceptualize this, literally write down what are something that you want to achieve personally in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, right? And think about what kind of money or time, or maybe it's something else for you, but most of the examples that we covered in this workshop came back to money or time. But think about how much money or time the business needs to generate for you in order to achieve those personal milestones, right? And we're just going to start with you. Just take yourself through this exercise. And then if you want to expand it to other people, certainly do that. But take yourself through this exercise. So write that down. What are your personal milestones that you really want to achieve in your life over the next 1, 3, and 5 years? And then think about how much money or time or some other resource or result that the business would have to produce in order to help you achieve that milestone, right? And then the next step is really defining, what does the company need to do to produce that result that gives you the money or time? And maybe it's growing to a certain sales level. Maybe it's opening up a new branch. You'll start to see, like, what is it that the company needs to actually do? And these big rocks or these big milestones will become the tenets of your strategic plan, right? And then you can actually start filling out the tactical pieces of, how do you actually do that? How do I open up a branch in this new market? Maybe you want to actually be a snowbird. Maybe you want to live part of the year in one part of the country and another part, and opening up a branch in that other part is desirable, because then it gives you a workplace there too. Figure out how you do that, right? So I thought that was a really nice approach. And again, obviously David Stearns does a nice job. Tom Erb talked about this a little bit too. And he actually talked about it too. How do you actually take it down to a recruiting plan and that planning ahead? And he was like, and once you figure out what your success rates are through your recruiting process, you'll be able to backwards plan everything in order to hit that goal, right? So if you think about the goal that you're trying to hit, or what you're trying to solve for with your business, like I mentioned that David shared, and then you actually map out your process and you track your performance metrics, then Tom said, whatever that goal is that you're trying to solve for, now you'll know exactly what work has to go into it. You know exactly how many job orders you need to have, how many candidates you need to supply, how many people you need to interview, how many applications you need from your job ads, how many job ads you need to post. And then all of that actually spins back into how much work is needed and how much money and time do you need to put into the business. And really, in my mind, when I was watching them present this, not together in different sessions, but in my mind, it was this full circle visual thing that hit me. So that was my biggest takeaway. And what I'm currently doing to put that into practice is doing that 1, 3, 5 year exercise, not just for me, but for the leaders of my staffing company. And we're going to get that from them. And we're going to figure out, what does this company need to be to solve for all those things for us, so the leaders can benefit. So we've got equity in this piece here, and then we can actually build our strategic and tactical plan out to this. And then we're going to look at our performance data, because we do measure that. And then we're going to plan the work to solve for the goal of what the company needs to do to make sure that we are aligning it to the personal and professional goals of the leaders of the organization. So we're in that phase right now, Q4 strategic planning. You all know I'm a big proponent of that. So that's really a new wrinkle that we're adding this year to do that, which I think is super exciting. And our leaders have been really excited about that already. So, but number two, okay, and this is actually a tactic. And this is something that came specifically out of the kind of the same concept, a little bit of what David was talking about in his presentation and a little bit of what Tom Erb was talking about in his presentation, but it's actually about the influencer, right? We've all heard this phrase, influencer marketing. What does that mean? And in the common day digital media terms, it's basically somebody that has an audience or influence over a group of people, right? That's what an audience is. And then when that influencer does something, uses a product, says something, provides direction, guidance, like something, generally what happens is the audience moves in that direction, right? So the reason I share this is both Tom Erb in his recruitment strategy and David Stearns in his candidate marketing and client side marketing, they both said that staffing agencies do not focus nearly enough on the influencers of the market they're trying to move, right? So if you are trying to recruit somebody, right, and you got a recruiting plan like Tom was talking about, or you got a recruitment marketing campaign like David was talking about, you're trying to get a general audience of candidates to notice you and take action to apply to your jobs and stay committed through that process, right? Sometimes they don't know who you are. You don't have any influence over them. So they might not be motivated or have the trust and credibility with you to take the action that you want them to take. So one of the best ways to do this is to actually get trust and credibility with the influencer of that person, right? Now, obviously, Tom and David went into a depth of information on this at this session, which is why you really should come to these live workshops in person to learn this. But I want to give one quick example of how my big takeaway as it relates to sales, right? So obviously when we're out there, we're prospecting sales, and it's getting harder and harder today. That's why we're bringing the Staffing Sales Summit together to make it easier for your salespeople to grow their business. But you have to think about, we're prospecting decision makers, we're prospecting hiring managers, HR people, all of these people, and they're busy in their daily lives. Like we're all just getting busier and busier and busier. But there's something that we each pay attention to, right? Maybe for you, maybe you pay attention to Staffing Monthly, and I'm grateful for that. I love having you in my community. Maybe you're a member of the National Independent Staffing Association already. Maybe you come to these events, and maybe you're in our audience and you're in my community, and I love that, right? And I'm grateful for it. But HR people, they have their community. A lot of them plug into the Society for Human Resource Management, or SHRM, right? They go to these local events and they get influence from that organization. You know, CEOs and leaders of organizations, they tend to be part of CEO roundtables and groups, and a lot of like what Tom Kosnick does, right? Like they look for those peer groups, and those peer groups create influence. So a way to actually enhance your prospecting campaign, so you're not just calling and emailing and walking in to where your physical prospect actually is to start marketing and engaging and getting trust and credibility with whoever might have influence over them, whatever audience they're in, you know. And it could be trade associations. I know many of us, we belong to NISA or the Staffing Industry Analyst, or the American Staffing Association, or some other state level staffing association. We belong to that group, and we're exposed to people that typically sell products or services to our industry. And truthfully, when those products or services, those companies are in good favor with the leaders of the association that you're in, you tend to hear about them more, because they're targeting the influence, right? And then if you know the leader of this association that you're a part of, or maybe a subset group of people within an association that you have trust and credibility with, if they're recommending something, or they're talking about, maybe they use, Aviante as their software, or great recruiters to build trust and credibility in the recruiting process and all of this stuff, right? You might be more likely to do it. That's the same way with the people you're prospecting. So if you can build trust and credibility with the influencer that they're in the audience of, maybe that trade association, whatever it is, you're going to enhance your prospecting campaign and actually improve your sales results. So for me, the practical application, what we're doing is we're actually doing a physical exercise. We're actually mapping out who are the people that we're prospecting. Who are they as people, right? What is their role? And then we're doing our best to identify 3 audiences that they may be a participant of. and we're trying to find two kind of trade association groups and like a LinkedIn group that's active, right? And we're trying to look at this, and then we're building influential activities into our prospecting campaigns. So our salespeople will actually start engaging with those associations. They'll start networking with people with those associations. They'll start being active and contributing to the LinkedIn groups there to build trust and credibility within the audience and with the influencer of the person that your target prospect is following. So take a look at that, do that as well. Look at your targeted prospecting campaign, very similar to what I actually taught on, what Tom Erb has talked on with his actually cadences, what John and Erica did in our How to Sell Staffing Services in last month's issue, where they talked about cadences. Like, think about who your targeted prospects are, and think about who the prospect is as a person, and who might have their influence, right? And then actually figure out ways to network in that sphere of influence and try to build trust and credibility there. And that will go a long way to help you grow your sales. So hopefully that's valuable. Last thing I want to share with you before I kind of promote the next couple events again. The last thing I want to share, this is a tool. This is one that I've been looking for something like this, and it wasn't even presented as like a resource. It was actually just mentioned. I'm pretty sure, I think it was Tom Erb that mentioned it, but I'm not even sure. It literally just kind of came up quickly in one of the presentations, and somebody asked about it, and they're like, hey, wait, what is that thing right there? And it's a tool called Fireflies. And maybe you've heard of this. Maybe you're an early adopter to technology and AI and all that stuff. Like, I try to be, but there's so much coming out that like I miss some stuff occasionally. This I had heard of, but I didn't take that next step to really check it out yet. But it's Fireflies. This is a AI, so basically artificial intelligent tool that attends your meetings. So it could attend a Zoom meeting, it could attend a Teams meeting, anywhere you might have a virtual meeting where you can actually include participants. You can actually have the Fireflies bot actually show up to it. And what it does, it just sits in the background. It's not on camera, any of that stuff. It just shows in the participant list. It doesn't do anything. And if it's on a calendar event, it will automatically show up. And it's basically note-taking from the entire conversation. And it does a great job of dictation. What it will actually do is it will show you, which speaker says what, and it gives you a lot of different things in a dashboard just to kind of run through it. What I like about it, and then I'm going to tell you one use case that I think is fantastic. But one is it will give you a verbatim transcript. It will basically show you who said what and when, timestamps, all that, which is amazing. If you have a long meeting, that can be a little bit overwhelming. There, you can actually filter by just specific people. So if you're like, I want to know exactly what these two particular participants said, you can do that. You can search the transcript. So if you're like, I remember they talked about this one thing, where do I go find this? And you can click on it and search and find it. It does actually capture the audio too. So if you wanted to hear the sentiment or the tonality of whoever was talking at that time, you can check that out, which is really cool. But it also summarizes it. It gives you an AI summary of the content. It'll basically, hey, this is the overall theme of the meeting, right? It puts it into kind of paragraph bullet points. Then it also will track metrics. If somebody mentioned a data point, it will log it as a metric. It will track dates and times. If somebody mentioned dates and times, it'll mention goals or revenue pricing if people talk about that. And then it will also identify action items. So if you're in a meeting and you say something like, hey, that's a great thing, I want to follow up with so-and-so on this, it will actually log that as an action item. And it will say, Dan, to follow up with so-and-so on this topic. So if you're actually conducting a lot of meetings and you feel like keeping the notes and kind of getting everything is a little bit daunting, or maybe you do video meetings and like having to go back and watch the recording is just overwhelming, this is an amazing tool for that. I've actually started using it in all of my meetings to do exactly that, to capture action items, the whole nine. What I think is really, really great is you can actually customize the summaries. And this is kind of a use case I want to share with you on the recruiting side. You can actually set up a customizable summary that could be how you present your candidates to clients. So if you're doing virtual interviews, you can actually invite Fireflies to participate in the meeting, or to attend the meeting, not really participate, to attend the meeting. And then you can interact with your client or your candidate. You can interview your candidate, take them through your standardized process, hear all of the questions, the answers, all of that kind of stuff. And Fireflies will take all of that information. It will measure if it was neutral, positive, negative sentiment. It will actually highlight any action items, but then it can actually format it into a customizable summary that could literally be your candidate presentation format or template that you share with your clients. So the reason why I think that's cool, standardization. Like it's standardization is so good. But if you can actually go to your client and say, hey, we use this tool to capture it, so we're going to provide the summary to you in this space, just know there's a whole lot of other data behind it. So if there's a candidate that you're particularly interested in and you actually want to hear how they answered a specific question, I can get you that information. And it's really an amazing tool. And I think it would be a great tool for recruiters to use to really capture their notes and actually organize it in a way that could be very easy to submit for a candidate to a client submission. So with that, those are three things that I think were super helpful. If you want to learn more about my presentation that I delivered, which is really setting a strategic plan for a salesperson and how to get clarity and accountability and all that kind of stuff, definitely go check out the NISA member library. If you're not a NISA member, go apply for membership and we'll have that conversation to see if this is the community is the right fit for you. Last thing I want to share before we part ways today is we have the Staffing Sales Summit. I cannot emphasize this enough. This is a first of its kind conference. There has never been, to my knowledge, a conference dedicated purely on training and development of staffing salespeople. We have all of the best and brightest staffing sales trainers, consultants coming to one area in Orlando, February 20th to the 22nd. There is a robust sales training track. There's content for producers, there's content for sales managers and leaders. And if you are in a situation where you want to take your sales game to the next level, if you want to elevate to that next level, or you want your sales, your organization to elevate to the next level and be successful, then you need to be here. There are only 100 spots available. You can go to the nisaconnections.com website. You can register for it there. It is not a NISA exclusive event. This is an industry event. It's just being brought to the industry by the National Independent Staffing Association. But you do not have to be a member of NISA to attend this event, and you do not need to be part of an independently owned staffing agency to attend this event. You just have to be a salesperson that wants to elevate your game, or a sales leader that wants to take your organization to the next level and have higher levels of success within staffing sales. So if that's you and you feel like you're maybe struggling or you want greater success with sales, definitely go claim one of those 100 seats. They are going to fill up fast. And you can find that registration rate on the NISA Connections website. Yeah, go ahead and sign up, and I look forward to seeing you there.